This is Maya Unger, and we're going to be interviewing people at PCH about who their number one on Spotify Wrapped was. Who's your first on Spotify Wrapped this year?
My first on Spotify Wrapped was Zach Bryan.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped of 2023?
Taylor Swift.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
My number one was Lil Yachty.
Okay. Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Duster.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Drake.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Travis Scott.
Okay. Your first on Spotify Wrapped?
J. Cole.
Who was your number one on Spotify Wrapped this year?
Zach Bryan.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
It was Babytron.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Zach Bryan.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Tyler the Creator.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
21 Savage.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Lil Baby.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
JID.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Drake.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Taylor Swift.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
And my number one on Spotify Wrapped was The Grateful Dead.
Who's your top artist on Spotify Wrapped?
LPB Pootie.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Meek Mills.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Mac Miller.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped this year?
NBA Youngboy.
Okay. Your first on Spotify Wrapped?
Dang CJ.
Who was your first on Spotify Wrapped this year?
Lil Baby.
Who was your number one on Spotify Wrapped this year?
The Weeknd.
Lastly, my number one on Spotify Wrapped was Lana Del Rey, and this is Maja and Mason reporting for PCH TV.